Hello, Ken Spriggs here with part 6 and the finale of my Moebius 2001 Space Station V build. Finally wrapping up this build and completing it. I was very close on the last video, as I said, but still had to get some things hashed out on the base and get that all completed, which we'll go over in this video. And then obviously I'll show you all the different parts together and the final finale at the end with the station and the painting. And also at the end, again, I'm going to have a special guest, Oggie Gonzalez, seeing the final reveal of the station and everything all together as well. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so I did a lot of work on the base, some additional work in order to enclose these two sides here. Because remember, just this frame on the inside is the only part that's attached down onto the base, and then that's what the painting goes on to. So I did that in order to give me some room so I can reach in and loosen up and tighten these Allen bolts in order to remove the station and also be able to work the wiring and that sort of thing. So I've done a couple of things. So as you can see, I started painting it. I painted the bottom black. So I first just did some flat black and I was still seeing the wood grain. So I went back and sanded it over, and then I put a couple of coats of filler primer over top of it and sanded that a little bit and got that nice and smooth. And then I went back over it with my Krylon flat black, which gives it a much smoother finish and a much smoother black. I debated about a couple of times back and forth about whether or not I wanted to speckle on some stars, but I really don't want to compete with Oggie's painting. His painting is fantastic, and I don't have the same painting talent that he does in doing that painting. And I really didn't want to mess this up and make it look, different and stand out against this painting. So, but I did want it to be black, and I didn't want just a plain wood underneath. So I'm good with this for now, and I have some other things I'm going to do on that, and I'll show you here in a little bit. But ultimately, I wanted the back of it to just be the painting with a frame around it, so you're not going to see the mechanisms and the wood and the things behind it. So what I did was I made these side pieces, and they're being held on by magnets. So there's a magnet here, there's a magnet down here, and then there's a magnet up on top which holds a top plate that goes on it as well. So this whole piece pulls off, and it has a piece of bottom wood there. And then I painted the back of it, and I did the same thing that I did on the other ones. I used the primer to get a nice smooth finish, but you're not really going to see much of this, and it's at a bit of an angle, as you can see. And then I have one on this side too. So this is removable in order for me to attach the station, and then all I do is just stick it on and line it up with the back here. And the same with this one over here. This one does the same thing. Comes off, and the same thing, it's painted black. All right, I didn't really film building those. I showed some stills, but that's the ultimate result of it. And I also painted the back a bit black. I'm not going to spin it around, you don't need to see it. You're not really going to see the back of it, but I wanted everything else to be black. So let me go ahead and get the painting, and then we get the top part and show you how this is all gonna work. All right, so here's the top piece. And the same thing, it all comes off, and there's magnets underneath. So it removes. Now, I didn't use magnets on both of them. I just used some used X-Acto knife blades, which are metal. Glue those onto it, and then magnets onto the other part so that it sticks. And so this fits on, get on there, and then I just position it in place. It doesn't have to be solid. It's not holding anything up. It's just for looks. It's a facade. Okay, so there's the basic box. Then what I did was I put some magnets in here for the painting, and I have 4 of them. These are glued into some styrene tube. And then on the back of the painting, I also put some magnets right there. And I've removed this and put it back on a couple of times, and it works just fine. So let me show you. One other thing I did, it's kind of hard to see it, but there's a wooden strip down there in the bottom with a gap in back of it, just wide enough for the thickness of this painting, which is a thin canvas board. All right, so then what I do is I just put this back into that back groove, sorry, and then it just lines up with the magnets for a little bit. Sorry. It makes contact with the magnets. All right. So for now, this part is completed. So now you have a nice finished black wood around the edge of the painting. We have the black on the bottom, and then all we're going to see is the painting against the black background and the station coming away from it. One other thing I'm going to do, I haven't done yet, is I'm going to go in and I'm just going to use some of my Tamiya semi-gloss black, and I'm going to paint around the edge carefully. I don't want to get any paint on the front. I just want to paint black around the edge so it blends in with the rest of it. But you're going to see that there's a painting on the front of this. So okay, so that's looking pretty cool, and that's ready to go. And the beauty of it is, and the necessity of all of these things is that I want to be able to remove it for transport. I want to be able to take the station off, reattach it, and I can't get in there to do anything if I have this covered permanently. So I had to build this removable structure. All right. All right, so I'm finishing a little bit of details on the station that had to be filled in, and some seams and some touch-up painting, that kind of thing. So when I put it together, the bottom, or the last seam I connected is this one right here. Sorry, you can see it right there. The front ring onto that little conic part and going back to the rest of it. It was very tricky, and I had to keep it aligned, and I had to hold it in place while it's set. So there was naturally just a little bit of gap here and there. So what I decided to do is to use some epoxy sculpt, just some 2-part epoxy sculpt putty, which is gray on its own, which is nice. And I just took some and I went around that little gap and just rubbed it into it, and then wiped it off and just did it all around until it went inside of the gap. All you want to do is fill that gap. So that's completed, and it's setting up. I'll just let that harden for a few hours, and you can see that needs painted, and I also need to touch up some paint. Because a little bit of red in there where I got some of the weathering powder on that other conal part there. So I'm going to let that set up, and then I'm going to go back, maybe mask off just a little bit, and lightly paint a little bit of neutral gray around those parts, and then go back in with some white to touch it back up, to bring that up to where I want it to be. In the meantime, I'm also going to go back in, and I've done a little bit of it, where I'm using this Tamiya Panaline accent color, which is just gray, but it's a slightly darker gray than what I have here. Let me open that up, and I'll show you how that works. All right. So I started testing it on this back part because you're really not going to see it. So this has its own little brush. So all you really do is tamp off a little bit. And I can come in here, just put like a little dab. It works the best when you put it on the little parts that have the details. You can see how that just kind of soaks into the details. Trying to do this while filming it. And this is actually, I believe, an enamel. Now I don't have any gloss on this. This is all flat, of course. So it's mostly going to just soak right in. Get a Q-tip here. If I get a little too much like this, I can just go back over it with a Q-tip and take it back off. But I don't want extreme weathering. I just want some slight variation that your eye's going to catch, so it doesn't look like just a dull flat, a dull light gray. Just gives it a little bit of character. Yeah, just a little bit. You can already see, so where this just looked like a bunch of really sort of a light gray, I'm giving it a little bit more character. Oops. And again, if I do too much, just take it back off there. Okay. So even though I'm not expecting this to be a really dirty weathered spaceship, sort of like Star Wars, it is in space. There is debris and dirt and dust and other things in space. So there's going to be some different shades in something this size. So, all right. So I'm going to go over that. If I like how it looks on the back parts, and I'll do like the back of this, then I'll do it on the fronts. I just want to keep it really subtle, but I want it to be able to give you a little bit of contrast when you're looking at it, so it doesn't look one whole monotone color. So, all right. All right, so once I put this on the base, the space clipper was sticking out a little too far, so I trimmed off that much right there. And then I re-glued on the part of that square tubing that I had that goes inside the part in the station. So that's a lot better to where I want it to be. If I need to adjust it some more, I still can. But for now, that's going to be good. It's going to be sticking out. It's going to make me nervous. But I don't have much choice. I want to be able to remove it, and I don't want it to be glued in permanently. But the fact that the station is sticking about like this on the base, this is going to be the one thing that's sticking out, and make me nervous that somebody's going to smack it and knock it off or whatever, but hopefully not. It's back further now from the bottom of the base, so hopefully it'll be back far enough that it'll be protected. So okay. All right, so dangerously close to finishing up this build. I like saying that as if it's somehow dangerous, but this time it's actually true. I'm really, really close, just finalizing the last little bits that I have to do. So what I did was I cut this wire on this side of the slip ring, and I soldered in and shrink tubed a connector. From Evan Designs, has a male connector, and then the other end has a female connector. You just match up the red and the black, and it creates the power. But the idea is it's a disconnect. So again, keeping in the theme that I want to be able to pull the station off of the base to transport it and then put it on. So the way it would work is I would have the painting here. I would place the wiring through this hole in the painting and through here, over to this direction. I might even put a little something in here to loop it through, we'll see. Then position this in and tighten down the Allen nuts to secure the station. And then I still have this little bit of space to get in here. And then in here, I glued in the female version of the Connect. It's hard to see, but this outer part is red. The inner one is black. I painted it, so I know the direction that it goes, because if you do it wrong, it won't work. And I have a bit of a tube, styrene tube. This is all 5-minute epoxy. This is nice and solid. So when this cable comes through, I'll have enough play where I'll just reach in and plug it in, and then the wire goes through the wood and it comes out the back. All right, so let me go ahead and turn this around and show you what I've done on the back. All right, and here's the back of the base. And here's the motor. I didn't want to paint the motor or cover the motor because it does get warm a little bit, not too bad, but I wanted that to stay unpainted, uncovered. And it has its own set of wires coming out of it. Here's the wire for the power to the lights for the station, the disconnect coming through. And both of them I went ahead and soldered onto other wires and shrink tubed them. The motor actually has this separate part that has this little shrink tube something or other. Not sure what that does, but it's required. And then depending on, so these wires, you can see they're just black. They're not red or red and black. So you can reverse them and the motor will go the opposite direction. So I had to make sure that I wanted it to go counterclockwise. And I'm not going into the whole debate about which direction it goes. Go back to my first video and you'll see that. But anyway, I wanted to go counterclockwise. So I wired them in so that they would be counterclockwise. And so originally I had talked about having two separate adapters because I want to do 9 volts on the lights and I want to do 12 volts on the motor. So I was putting these together and I thought, you know what, let me just get and test it. And I hooked up the motor to 9 volts and lo and behold, it worked fine. So then I went ahead and I put them both together. And right now I have it in this temporary connector just to make sure that together wouldn't be any problem, and it worked just fine. It rotates just the same way normally. I can't tell any difference. And the lights of course work under the 9 volts. So happy accident there, but it wasn't an accident, but a happy little turn of events. So I won't need to use 2 different adapters. I can just use the one at 9 volts and I can power both of them. So that'll be nice. At this point, I'm not looking to do any switches. I know I talked about having a switch for each, but I don't see the point. So I'm just going to put it in. I'm just going to get it hooked up and wired up that I can just plug in the power adapter and everything comes on. I really don't see any reason to have them separated. I could if I wanted to. And these wires are going to be exposed back here. I'm just going to probably tape them down with some black tape once I get everything done. But all of this is accessible, which is the beauty of it. These come off, the painting comes off. Something goes wrong with the motor, I can always get it out of there and replace it, get a new one. Something goes wrong with the wiring, it's all right here. So nothing's going to be too badly encased except the power connector, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So let me show you what I came up with for the to plug in the power adapter. All right, so I just built this little box out of the same basswood that I used for these side panels. And I did it at an angle because what I want to do is I want to have it down here like this in the middle, but just have it look straight. It doesn't have to be in a certain spot, but I want it towards the bottom because you don't want the power cords hanging down off of it necessarily. So I cut out a hole, and I have this little connector that I got from Evan Designs. It's a little nicer one. It bolts in there, and it just has the two leads, the positive and negative. And so I still have to drill a hole in the top of here to run. So I'm going to combine these wires together, positive and negative, and I'm going to take them down through a hole, cut this off, solder them into the connection and shrink tube it. And then this whole part here, this won't be here, of course, it'll be out of the way, but this is just going to be glued on. I'm going to 5-minute epoxy it onto here solid, and then just plug in the adapter in the back of the base. Nice and neat, nice and clean. And like I said, the wires that are here, I'm just going to get like maybe some black duct tape, that kind of thing, just to have it blend into the black. You're really not going to see the back of it. That's why I didn't worry too much about the finish of this, like I did these other ones that you're going to see. You're not going to see the back, but I want it to just look black, so you know, from behind you're not going to notice anything sticking out. And then once I get that on there, that'll complete all the power. So then I can just put the station in, plug in the disconnect, and you know, attach down the station with the Allen nuts over the painting, and then plug it in, and she's all ready to go. All right, so let me go ahead and put the station on here and kind of show you once again how all the mechanisms and the slip ring and that kind of thing. Just one final wrap up of that. All right, so here's my little Allen wrench tool. So again, what I do is I fish the wire for the lights through the hole, and keep in mind the painting will be on here as well. And if I need to, I can have the painting loose and not attached to the magnets, and just it'll come out a little bit until it hits the station right here. Give me a little more room to get in here to do all this stuff. So then what I do is I line this up and press it through, reach in from the top, and I tighten this little Allen bolt. Reach in from the side, tighten the side one. The key to it that I've discovered is when I finish rotating it, make sure it stops so that the one setter on the top, the other setter on the side. That way I can access them. I could get in the other side too, but that's just how I've been doing it. Then what I do is I then reach in, take the power thing and just plug it in, matching up the red side to the red side. And that's what I was saying, like maybe I'll put some kind of a little loop or something to fish this through, but I don't have to. As long as it's not making any contact with the motor or the connector, and it's still going really slow, it would just kind of brush it away. It wouldn't really, it's not moving quickly and giving a lot of friction. All right, but everything's all connected. So the motor, the station is connected to the motor, so it'll rotate. The power is connected into the back, which I just showed you is going to go down to the power. And so it would be all set. And then of course the slip ring is in this housing, which is keeping it fixed in this wooden frame, the outer slip ring. The inner slip ring, along with this wire, moves independently. This steel tube goes into the station and is glued in the central hub so that it rotates, but none of the wires get kinked or twisted. All right, so a lot of engineering, but it all came together. And then of course the painting will go back up against the magnets that I have for it, and then I'll replace, see, I have this side piece held on by magnets. I'll replace the other side piece over here, the top part here with magnets, and the whole thing will be nice and compact and complete and ready to go. All right, so I have all the wiring run into the connector down in this box. I'm ready to glue it onto the back of the box. And then I have some black duct tape that I'm going to tape the wires down with. One final test. You always want to test everything. Make sure that it's working. So I went ahead and attached the station. And it's lit up and it's rotating. Little connector back there. Perfect. All right. So I got power. Everything's working fine. I'm not using any switches. I don't think there's any need for it. I'm just going to plug it in the back, and then everything will come on and turn on. So, okay, let me get that box glued in the back, and that will complete the base. All right, in the previous still, I showed an image of an STL file from a website called cults3d.com. I bought some other files from them before. I went out and searched, and I was looking for the logo from the poster, 2001: A Space Odyssey. And it's its own unique. I mean, it has the same font. Whenever they show the 2001 and the Space Odyssey, they have a certain font, and that's what this is. But the poster, which I also showed an image of a moment ago, has a large 2001 colon, which is smaller, and then you have all lowercase letters, and they're about half the size of these big numbers. And they spell out, obviously 2001: Space Odyssey. So I printed them out in a couple sizes. I ended up getting it down to the right size that I wanted. And then what I'm going to do is I got a piece of, at first I put them down on here to kind of see what it was going to look like. What I want to try to emulate is the poster at the bottom has in yellow this logo. So I don't want to put it back there because the station is sticking out and it's more of a three-dimensional representation of the poster. So what I want to do is I want to put it somewhere right about in this area up here. And I'm looking at a couple of ideas of some wood. I got a piece of balsa wood that has kind of a slight bevel on it, but it's not very thick. And I could put it on that, and it raises it up just a little bit, paint that black. So I'm going to play with that and see what I can do. In the meantime, I'm going to get the letters all cleaned up and get them painted yellow. And then whatever I put them on is going to be against the black backdrop. That way it gives it more of that three-dimensional look of the poster that we're seeing the logo down here, and then the station in between it, and then the image of the poster behind it without the station from the poster, of course. All right, so let me go ahead and work on those and see what I can come up with as far as getting that done as well. All right, so I went ahead and got those painted. I decided to go with the piece of balsa wood that I talked about. So here it is. It's it's just like a wedge. It's a slight bevel. You can see back here, it's just balsa wood. So I did the same thing. I put on some primer. I got a couple of coats so it got rid of the wood grain. And then I went over it with the flat black and got a nice smooth look on it. And then I painted the letters or the logo separately. And then I set it up on here the way I wanted it to be. Went in with some 5-minute epoxy and glued in one at a time. Well, a few at a time, just to keep them all lined up, to keep it all straight. I think it turned out pretty nicely. A few little touch-ups I got to do. But ultimately, this is going to be probably right about here. And I cut it to span the width of the base. And then here's the, back up a little bit. So here's the overall look that you're going to get that kind of emulates the paint, the poster. You have the poster, you have the station, which is going to be in between it. And then you have this up here. And I'll place that once I get the station all put into place and make sure it looks right, to try to look for that, to try to emulate the poster. But really happy with that, really glad how that turned out. I thought about using other things like maybe print out some vinyl, self-adhesive vinyl, or get letters. The problem is it's hard to get the right font and the right sizes, and it was perfect. The 3D file that I found was perfect and looks just like the poster, which I think was the best way to go. So, okay. All right, so I finished all of the weathering on the station. The station is now complete, using the panel wash from Tamiya that I showed in a previous video. What I also did, kind of sloppily, but I put some black 3.0 over top of that little bit of the steel rod and the wire that you'll see a little bit got onto the station, but that's, you're not going to see any of that. But I just wanted that to blend in with the black painting behind it, so I just kind of dabbed that on. I did it when it was attached, so it was hard to get in there. But it does the job, so it kind of obscures it. But here's the station. And as I was talking about, so it's very, very subtle. It's not very stark. And even though it looks a little darker when I'm adding it in, when I'm applying it, when it dries, it doesn't look quite that stark. And I did some along the little spokes there, the detail on that. I did some on this part here. The inner parts, the outer parts. It's just enough to give it an overall look of more realism. Not just the plain light gray that doesn't look to scale for something this large. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. So it's all ready to go. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and get it attached onto the completed base. And I did get my my logo plate with the 2001: A Space Odyssey in yellow 3D printed letters glued onto it as well. So let me get that put on there, and then we'll go ahead and reveal the final build. And as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the video, I have a special guest, Oggie Gonzalez from Interstellar Modeler, who is going to join us over Skype, and we're going to reveal the final build with him as well. He hasn't seen it before either. So let's go ahead and have a talk with Oggie, and then once I do that, I'm going to get some closer videos and images of the final station at the end. So, all right. Okay. All right. So I'm going to show the finale of my several months long build of the Moebius 2001 Space Station V. Really happy with how it turned out. Really love this kit. I think it's well designed. I'm really happy with how it all came out. So I have with me my guest, Oggie Gonzalez from Interstellar Modeler.
Hey guys.
He painted this wonderful painting here in the background, and I put together a little framework around it as I showed previously in the video. So I got glued down my 2001: A Space Odyssey logo that I 3D printed onto the piece of balsa wood wedge. So everything's all set to go. So we're gonna do the final reveal here of the station and turn it on and have it all powered with the lights and the rotation. So let me just kind of flip it around a bit first of all and show you. So here's kind of a side view. The iconic image of it tilting down to the space station blasting out of it, or the clipper blasting out of it. You can see the sides there hiding the inner mechanics. And if I turn it this way, similar situation, you can see the side of it.
Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of, I posted a lot of videos on Facebook and Instagram while doing this. It seemed like I kept posting very similar same videos, but it was just tweaking all of the various elements and having them all work together with the motor and the slip ring and the wiring in the station and the wiring in the motor and everything just, coming together.
Right.
And every single step of the way, testing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even before I glued the final box on the back with the adapter, I just tested everything just one more time, because if I glued that on, it didn't work. That would have been a nightmare. So, all right. So we're going to get that plugger in. And
all right. Ready to see this go.
Start rotating and show the lights.
Wow. Check that out. Incredible. Yeah, and you even have the same illumination coming out of that launch bay there as the poster too, right?
Yeah, what I did was
same color. Yeah, that's great. Wow.
I still used the cool white LED strips, but I painted yellow on the inside, or the outside, I guess it would be, of the docking bay to give it that warm white look. Because yes, in the film, I did it's hard to tell, but in the poster, the lights might be more yellowish, but you don't see them that brightly in the poster.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to stick with the coal white anyway.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So I have to say, Ken, every time I see your next build, I go, wow, he outdid his last one. Well, this one outdid. Oh my gosh. Absolutely amazing. It really came through. I mean, from the idea that you had from the beginning and all the work you put into this now, it's just incredible. I think it's really one of the best ones I've seen of this model. It's beautifully done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And certainly kudos to you as well. I couldn't have done it without your amazing painting in the background.
Well, I'm glad to have played a part in this incredible project. Yeah.
Yep, nailed the poster, and it gives it that 3D look, like the posters come to life.
Yeah.
We have the image behind it, we have the station in between, and we have the logo, which would be at the bottom of the poster, but it's out here in the front where the whole station is three-dimensional.
Yeah. It's really cool, Ken, because, a lot of times you'll see these posters, they're usually just concepts that the artists have. You never see that scene in the film. And this is really making that come to life. It's absolutely just incredible. Beautiful job.
Yeah. Thank you. And I've always loved that poster.
Yeah.
And even before, we had talked about it before, even before I saw the film, I saw the poster and I was like, wow, that's really amazing. Look at that.
Right.
And of course, when you see the film, you expect to see that, and you don't.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So tell me again now, just to, so you mentioned now this is running off 9-volt for the lights for sure, right? And the motor as well?
Yes, both are just running off of one variable adapter at 9 volts. They can do 12. But I did find out that the motor works just fine. It's 1 RPM. It works on either 9 volt or 12 volts.
Wow, that's great.
What I had noticed on the 12, as I ran it for a while, it was getting a bit warm. Like the LEDs do. I don't know if you've noticed that. They're rated for that, but they do tend to get warmer when you're running them at 12 versus 9 volts. But now I've noticed, and I've run it for quite a while, it doesn't get warm at all.
Oh, that's great.
And so it doesn't need 12 volts. It works fine on 9 volts.
Wow.
And it rotates at 1 RPM. And so that's perfect. And I like the that are more subtle. And it's cool too. Like if you notice, if you put like some shading like it is in the film, it's moving through dark patches and light patches as he filmed it that way. And some points the lights look bright, other points they look dimmer because obviously they're illuminated by
big
studio lights.
Yeah. I also love the final touch you added there to bring things together with that with the font that you found.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
yeah.
it's really good. I was looking around. I had actually thought, because you had asked me about the vinyl cutter, I had thought about trying to find it and going in and doing vinyl letters, but
Right.
always tricky. So I just went out and looked it up, and I found the exact font and the exact style. It's really
Hmm.
it's odd because in the poster you have the larger 2001, the smaller colons. These are all lowercase, and
Yeah.
they're the size of the numbers.
Yeah.
So it was actually a squared off version of it, and it actually said Stanley Kubrick's at the top, and I cut that off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but it was the perfect font, the perfect size, and I just printed it out, and all the letters actually printed individually. And then just when I finally got in the size, I just printed them out, taped them down on a piece of cardboard, and just painted them all yellow.
Yeah.
And then this is just a piece of balsa wood that's a wedge. And just like the side pieces, what I did was I went over with several coats of primer to get them smooth, get rid of the wood grain, and then went over it with flat black finally.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it goes really well because it's coming out in 3D, just like the station and the ship are. So it just ties everything together.
Yeah,
It probably would have fell a little flat had they just been vinyl, stickers
yeah,
on that piece. So it
yeah.
really goes with everything else. So that's
If
amazing.
you're viewing it from this direction, you're getting that whole poster image
Oh yeah,
of
absolutely.
everything, all the elements in a three-dimensional version, like they're all exploded out
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
from the poster.
Well, I remember you telling me about the concept, and I was wondering if you're going to be able to pull it off, and it actually is just incredible. So, congratulations on the beautiful goal. I have no doubt a lot of people will be taking video of this at next Wonderfest for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, really happy with how it turned out. I mean, this was, I can't remember exactly how long. I'm thinking like 3 months or so.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's been a few months. Right.
and
Yeah.
definitely a challenging. I mean, the model itself, this back ring took at least a couple of weeks on its own, just because of all the parts, and this
Right.
has different weathering as well, with some red weathering powder, some orange,
Sure.
the red paint, that kind of thing, and then I used other weathering techniques to make the station look a little less monotone. Um, People have talked about, like, oh, you could get two models and just build the fit a station. That would be enormously boring.
Yeah. Right. This is visually very interesting. Exactly.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
the framework and the construction really adds to it,
I think
and
so
takes
too.
away from the fact that it's just two exactly the same rings
Yeah.
rotating, in a light gray kind
Right.
of a, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, really happy with how the little space clipper from Fantastic Plastic turned out.
Yeah.
Decals in that
Yeah.
blast
Very
station,
nice.
which I know it wouldn't really be doing in real life, but in the post, that's what we're going
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. So everyone leaving a comment right now, yes, we know that would not be happening in real life.
There's no exhaust space. It
Right.
wouldn't be blasting that hard out of the station. It would just like destroy the machinery,
Yeah.
hurt, kill some people. But so you can't really see, but there are obviously lights inside that you can
Yeah.
make. And certainly the nice thing about it being tilted is that when it's on display, you'll be able to look behind it and see that and see the.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's interesting that you made it tilt that way so it goes with every that it's
Yeah.
yeah the way it comes out this way and you're able to see from behind it that way. That's great. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
fantastic.
Poster, of course, the station would have been coming this way.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had to have some side or something, and it would have been too much of a complexity.
Right.
But it's
Yeah.
still the same concept that the station is tilted down, and it just gives it a little more character. That it's out in space and it's moving, and it's not just
Sure.
static
Yeah.
side shot or front shot of the station. So,
All right. Very good.
all right. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate your painting, and again, you've outdone yourself. This
Thank
is a
you.
work of
Yeah.
art. I'm really happy to display it with
It's
this.
my pleasure to have participated, and I will definitely be open to participating in other ideas that you come up with.
Yeah.
But it looks great. Fantastic job, Ken.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Augie.
You
I
bet.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right, and there's the station on its base, not turned on yet. Let me go ahead and plug in the adapter. Again, just one plug. There we go. Really, really beautiful. And so Oggie had asked me if I looked at it in the dark. I really haven't. The lights aren't the thing that I want you to see, but you can see the lights. They're very, very prominent. And this is daylight. It's early or late in the afternoon, almost early in the evening, so the sun's getting ready to set, but it's still pretty bright out, so I'm getting some good light on it. But the idea is I want you to see the painting, I want you to see the whole presentation, but you can still see the lights. The lights are very bright. Sorry, the dog's barking out there. Yeah, very prominent. And if we look back behind it, they look even brighter when they're not in direct light, which is what we see in the movie. In the film, the station is changing perspective and moving and rotating, and we're moving around it. And so at some points, some of the station is in light, sometimes it's in shade, and that's when you get different looks, and the lights look different brightness. But there it is, rotating. I got the edge of the painting painted black, so it matches in. The logo glued down, of course. A rotating space clipper, sorry. Leaving the station with the cool white, not cool white, warm white hue. And that looks a lot more yellow in this light. Looks really cool. See the lights. Very, very cool indeed. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I'm glad I went with this particular approach to do the iconic poster from the film. So, all right, fantastic. All right, so that's going to wrap up this video and this build of the space station. Very happy with how it's turned out. Really, really good kit. A lot of work on it, definitely with the construction side. And then obviously all the added things I did with the base and getting it to rotate and light up and everything else. So really happy with how everything turned out. I don't have any definite plans on the next thing that I'm going to be building. I will be returning to my commission builds and working on those also. So I'll probably be posting some videos soon for those. So thank you to all my new subscribers, and I will see you in the next video.